The sea is restless under a heavy gray sky, the swell lifting and falling like the slow breathing of some giant beneath the surface. A thin rain veils the horizon, blurring the line between ocean and cloud. The narrator's voice cuts through the ambient roar of the wind and the low groan of the ship's steel hull. In the winter of 1939, before the war was even 3 months old, the Atlantic became the hunting ground of a single Predator Germany's pocket battleship, Admiral Graf Spee. Somewhere far south of here, in the cold emptiness off the River Plate, a story of wits, steel, and desperation is about to unfold. On the bridge of HMS Exeter, Captain Frederick Bell stands hunched over the chart table, the light from a shaded lamp illuminating the fine lines of his features and the deep shadows beneath his eyes. Signals from Cumberland and Ajax confirm, his first officer says quietly, the paper rattling in his hands. "It's her, sir." Bell straightens, the weight of the moment falling squarely on his shoulders. "Very well," he says, steady but subdued. "Make to all ship's enemy in sight." Outside, the sea air whips across the deck as lookouts peer through binoculars. On the horizon, through gaps in the mist, a silhouette looms. Low and sleek, her 3 triple turrets fore and aft, the Graf Spee is a Predator born for commerce raiding, armed with 11-inch guns and driven by diesels that can keep her prowling for months. In the wardroom of HMS Ajax, Captain Charles Woodhouse listens as Commodore Henry Harwood leans over the chart. "She's faster, heavier, and at range she outgun us. We need to split her fire, force her to fight in 2 directions, Harwood says, his finger stabbing at the chart. "Exeter to one flank, Ajax and Achilles to the other. Close the range before she can take us apart?" There's a beat of silence, broken only by the creak of the hull. "Aye, sir," Woodhouse replies, his voice low but resolute. Engines roar as the trio of cruisers surge forward, bow waves curling white against their hulls. The water churns with each broadside as Graf Spee opens fire, geysers of spray erupting near Exeter. On Exeter's bridge, the shockwave of the first shell rattles the glass, a low, deep thud felt as much as heard. "Starboard 10, keep her weaving," Bell orders. The helmsman's hands are tight on the wheel, knuckles white. Another salvo lands closer, a jagged shard of steel whistling past and clanging off the deck. Exeter's forward guns answer, the deck shuddering violently with each shot, cordite fumes searing throats and eyes. The narrator's voice softens, cutting under the chaos. The Battle of the River Plate begins at 6:18 a.m. The first major naval battle of the Second World War. It will last less than 2 hours, but for those aboard, each minute will feel like a lifetime. On Ajax, the air is thick with shouted orders, the bitter tang of spent powder hanging in the confined bridge. "Shift target to turret 2. Someone yells, and the gunnery officer's eyes never leave his rangefinder. The Graf Spee's shells scream overhead, slamming into the sea off the starboard bow, hurling plumes of seawater over the deck. Down below, the stokers work in hellish heat, feeding the boilers, sweat streaming down soot-blackened faces. In the gunnery control tower of Achilles, Lieutenant Commander William Washburn steadies himself against the violent roll of the ship. "Mark! Fire!" he calls, and the guns erupt in unison, tongues of flame licking the gray morning air. Far ahead, Graf Spee's captain, Hans Langsdorff, stands braced in his own bridge, hands gripping the rail. His face is unreadable, but his eyes flick between splashes in the water and the converging wakes of his hunters. "Switch fire to Exeter," he orders, his voice calm, almost detached. The massive guns thunder and shells crash into Exeter's superstructure. Metal screams as shrapnel tears through bulkheads, splinters fly, and men are hurled from their positions. Below decks, smoke fills passageways as damage control parties struggle to stem flooding. "Port engine room hit. Fire spreading," comes the call over the voice pipe. Bell forces himself to stay composed, maintain course. She has to focus on us, keep the others free to strike. There's admiration in Harwood's glance from miles away. Exeter is taking a pounding, but her defiance is drawing the Graf Spee in. Shell by shell, the British gunnery begins to tell. One of Graf Spee's secondary turrets is smashed, fires lick along her deck, and her fuel purification plant is damaged. Langsdorff's expression tightens. He knows without it, his range and endurance are crippled. Break off, he says finally, to the quiet surprise of his officers. He turns Graf Spee towards the coast, seeking shelter in neutral Uruguay. The ships ease their fire, the thunder fading into the hiss of rain on steel. On Exeter, men slump against bulkheads, faces streaked with grime and exhaustion. Bell removes his cap, staring out at the receding enemy, knowing the fight is far from over. The narrator's tone carries the shift in pace, from pounding urgency to tense anticipation. In the hours that follow, the world's eyes turn to Montevideo. Trapped in a foreign port, damaged and low on supplies, the hunter must decide whether to break free, surrender, or face destruction. In the harbor, Langsdorff walks the deck slowly, pausing to look at the scars gouged into the once pristine ship. His officers gather in the wardroom, murmuring about international law, repair times, and the British ships waiting just beyond the 3-mile limit. The tension is palpable, heavy as the summer heat. "We cannot win against them all," Langsdorff admits quietly, "but I will not see more of my crew die for nothing." Days stretch, punctuated by diplomatic wrangling and the constant presence of Allied ships offshore. On Ajax, sailors lean on the rails, eyes fixed on the harbor mouth, whispering speculation. In the quiet moments, they share cigarettes, letters from home, a thin veneer of normalcy laid over the taut coil of waiting. Then, on the evening of December 17th, movement stirs. Graf Spee's engines rumble to life, smoke rising into the dusk. Word spreads like a spark through the British ships. "She's coming out," someone breathes. The crews race to action stations, hands tightening on shell hoists, rangefinders tracking the shape as it emerges into the fading light. But there is something strange. Graf Spee steams slowly, deliberately, her crew lined at attention along the deck. A few small boats pull away toward the shore. And then, in the deepening darkness, the first orange bloom of fire erupts from her decks. One after another, explosions tear through her, the shock waves rumbling across the water. Flames leap high, silhouetting her against the night sky. The narrator's voice is hushed, tinged with both awe and sadness. Captain Hans Langsdorff scuttles his ship rather than risk their lives in a hopeless battle. In doing so, he denies the Allies the prize of capturing her intact and preserves the honor of his crew. From the decks of the British cruisers, men watch the great ship burn, the glow reflecting off the waves. Some feel triumph, others an odd emptiness. The chase, the battle, the days of waiting, they are over in a handful of fiery minutes. In the days that follow, Langsdorff, still in Montevideo, pens letters to his family and superiors. He speaks of duty, of the weight of command, of the cost of war. And then, alone in a hotel room, he takes his own life, wrapped in the flag of the Imperial German Navy. The war moves on, but the memory of the battle lingers in the minds of those who fought it. Years later, old sailors will recall the glare of the South Atlantic sun, the shudder of the guns, the strange respect for the man they hunted. The narrator's final words fade over a slow aerial shot of the empty sea where the Graf Spee once prowled. In hunting the pocket battleship, they found more than an enemy. They found the measure of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring code of the sea.